what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a baseball player. In fact, I never thought about any other thing than that. I was always entrepreneurial. I was always, very entrepreneurial. I always had a little business on the side. I sold sodas at the golf course. In fact, the golf tournament that you and I were talking about offline here, when my son just won, I used to sell sodas at that golf course as a little side business, like sandwiches and sodas. And then I had an auto detailing business. I had a paper route. So I was always entrepreneurial, but I never thought I'd do anything in my life except play baseball. I never even thought about doing something else.
So when you even picked your degree for college, it was kind of, I just need a degree because I'm going to play baseball.
Pretty much, yeah. But I kind of have this deep voice, right? And so everything happens for you, not to you. I talk about that all the time. And so my major in college was actually communications. It was business communications with an emphasis in broadcasting, which turns out to have helped me out a lot with my own podcast, my own TV show. So, and I didn't know it at the time, but it was prepping me for the rest of my life. But I didn't know it at the time.
Yeah. So you graduate from college, you get your degree in communications.
I did.
And so did you go straight, what did you do right when you graduated from college?
Played baseball, and then I got released, and then I went into about a year-long depression where I was unemployed.
Okay.
So a lot of people relate to that. Your first dream doesn't work out, and you don't know what to go after that first dream happens. And so I ended up living back at home with my parents, same bed that I grew up in, same teddy bear on the bed, same posters on the wall. And I was sort of just a sloth, man. I was really struggling. That's what happened after college.
So were you seeking out jobs with your degree, or?
Yeah, I was trying to find work, sort of, like a lot of college guys who don't make it. I go on interviews, and they just wouldn't happen. Finally, my dad came home. My dad had just gotten sober. My dad had an alcohol issue, and he got sober. It was at one of the meetings you can go to when you get sobriety. He came back from the meeting and said, "I found you a job. So in the morning, get your butt up. You're going over to a place called McKinley in San Dimas." I said, "What's McKinley?" He said, "I don't have any idea, but you got a job there." So I showed up there the next morning. It changed my life because all up until that point, I was selfish. I had a big ego. It was always about me as an athlete, what I was going to be. Like a lot of young people, I was just about myself. I walk in there, I said, "Hey, I'm here for the job." They're like, "What job?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I have no idea. What is this place?" Like, it was a group home. McKinley was a group home of like a campus full of group homes. So all the boys there was hundreds of boys. All of them were wards of the court. They were all removed from their family. Either their parents were killed or in prison or molested them. And so, long story short, they said, "Well, who's hiring you?" I said, "I don't know." They said, "Well, then get out of here. You don't even know what you're talking about." And as I'm leaving, I go, "Well, the guy's name's Tim." They're like, "Well, who the hell is Tim?" I said, I don't know. "Well, he's an alcoholic. I know that." They're like, "Oh, Tim, drunk Tim. We know who Tim is." And so they ended up having me go to this home. I walk in, there's these young boys, are 7 to 10 years old. And I walked in, and I instantly connected with these young boys. And I knew right away when I met these guys. See you, brother. Thanks, man. So right when I connected with these guys, my life changed, completely changed, because I knew like my life's now about serving people. And so I became like their father, like their big brother. My whole life changed. I became about changing other people's lives. And that's where my life altered, was right at that time. Worst time of my life became the best time of my life.
Yeah. So was there a person in your life that became a mentor during that time, or was it just kind of self-reflection you realized?
Close to it. Right about a year after that, the company that I'm now still with, I was approached to come to work in that company, and I found a bunch of mentors there. These were all people that were 6- and 7-figure type earners. They kind of grabbed me under their wing when I was young and coached and mentored me, and then from there it became Tony Robbins, whom I met through some seminars I was in. And so I've always had mentors who have lifted me up in my life, all my life. I'm a product of great mentors. And by the way, doing what they told me to do. It's one thing to have a mentor, it's another thing to be coachable. And actually, my one mentor said, "Eddie, I need you to move at the speed of instruction." So move at that speed. And so as he instructed, I moved.
So my question is, you had these mentors, did they approach you? How did they become your mentor? I want students to realize what it takes to have a mentor.
I sought most of them out, and that's how it normally needs to work, right? And so most of them I had to, I sought them out. I tell them, "I need your help. I'd like to be like you. If you'll spend the time with me, it'll be an investment worth making." And so every one of them, I asked for their help.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you get into your career. How did your degree benefit you in your new career?
Well, the degree didn't, other than the discipline of getting it. I didn't even walk at graduation. I don't even know where my degree is. I've never seen it since I graduated, just to be honest with you. I don't even know where it is. If I had to prove I graduated, I don't even know that I can. Although I got better grades in college than I did in high school. Sports, for sure, gave me all the disciplines. Because I was an undersized athlete, too. So I'm all about, like, I believe this in the day and age today. Your information's free.
Yeah.
In the old days in business or in life, the separator was, what did you know? Right? Well, now everybody knows the same stuff. You can just Google it. The separator now is work. That's good news for someone like me who's not overly bright, right? Like now the separator is who gets there early, who leaves late, who does the extra reps, who makes the extra phone calls. In baseball, is who get in the cage, who pick the extra at-bats. So for me, business became something I could be good at because all the principles of sports, being competitive, getting there early, leaving late, outworking everybody, right, became the separator in business. And I already had a little bit of that from baseball. And so that was a great lead-in for me. And school, by the way. Other guys were partying in fraternities, drinking every single weekend. I was getting grades. I was putting my papers together because when you're an athlete and you go to school, some of your listeners relate to this. I don't have the luxury like everybody else. We're on the road. We travel. We miss classes. I had to be disciplined in order to stay in college. When you're a college athlete, people don't realize the demands on you scholastically are greater than just having a job because you travel for your sport. And so it was, I had to have discipline, habits, and rituals early on in my life.
Love it, love it. Outside of school, what advice would you give kids that are in high school that they should be doing on their own now to prepare them for school?
Well, let me say one thing about grades, just to go back to that. I think grades are important. I'm going to tell you what I mean by that. I think it's indicative of your effort. If you're not getting good grades now, you're probably not going to perform in life. So my grades were important, not because they were going to make me win, but because it proved I was competitive. It proved I could be in the top 10%, the top 20%. And so I think grades are important. I tell my kids that too. If you can get an A, you ought to be getting an A, right? You got to max out your effort. The next thing I would tell somebody that's young is you already need to be thinking about what you want to do. What's your dream? What's your passion? If you don't know a good dream or know what your passions are, start following people who live in a dream. Follow me. Go on Instagram and follow Ed Mylett. Listen to my podcast. Start to feed your mind. Because here's the thing. School's going to teach you what to learn, okay? But in life, you'll never exceed your identity. You'll never exceed your self-confidence. You'll never exceed your dream. But one, you have to have a big vision for your life and know exactly what it is you want. But if you don't have that, you're never going to exceed your self-confidence level. So you got to be reading books, listening to things, being on social media, following the right people that can build your confidence, build your vision, build your identity in your life, because you'll never get further in life than you think you're worth. And so you got to invest in your own worth. And let's be honest, young people, a lot of people are pulling at you. There's people on social media that are negative. There's people at school that are negative. Maybe your parents are even hard on you, right? So who's in your corner? Who's building you up except you, right? So you got to be building you up, working on your self-esteem all the time. Because the people that I know that have won, whether it's the athletes I coach that are professional athletes or business people, just had one of the best athletes in the world just walked by in the middle of this interview, who I just finished interviewing. And his name's Mike O'Hearn, and he's a bodybuilder. And they're all self-confident people. They all are self-confident. Most of us didn't come from great families. There's dysfunction in my family. There's dysfunction in his family. They won't come from great places, but we all have worked on our self-confidence. Probably is the number one thing.
Yeah. And when I was talking about grades, like it's almost my grades gave me a false sense of confidence.
I agree with that.
I didn't realize I needed to be seeking out mentors. I didn't realize I needed to be seeking out people, podcasts, books, until you get to the real. So like grades are very important, but also don't get comfortable in just making good grades.
That's advice every parent gives their kids, and there's nothing wrong with it. There should just be but or and after it. Get good grades and get good grades, but do this. And so you're right. That is not going to be the end all be all. When I live here oceanfront in Laguna Beach. This house is for sale for $23 million right now, okay? It's one of 3 homes that I own. And when I bought this house, let me tell you what the bank didn't ask me. What did you get in chemistry class in high school? Nobody cares. They want to know how much money I got in the bank, right? And so at one point now, having said that, achievement starts at school. It's the first place you can prove yourself. It's the first place you can separate yourself. But it is not, it's an indicator you could win, but it's not a win.
Right. One thing I didn't realize is the importance of a sales mentality, even if not in sales.
Yes.
I'm embarrassed to say it, but I look down upon salespeople.
So did I.
And
so did my family.
And so I never even considered it, but some of the most successful people, and even if they're not in sales, they have a sales mentality. They've learned from the best in sales.
Yeah, almost everything is sales though. Let me tell you, sales is persuasion, is the ability to communicate, right? And so almost everything requires you to persuade people to, even if you do software for a living, right? You're persuading someone to get that job you got. That's sales. So everything requires some form of persuasion and the ability to communicate your thoughts well. And so you're exactly right. My family not only did I look down, my family was skeptical of salespeople. I still have to work on that a little bit. But I've worked on my ability to persuade, to communicate, to make a point, to get people to agree with me, especially because one thing to remember about being in the sales mentality is, as long as what you're communicating to people benefits them and is better for their life, you have an obligation to do it in the most elegant, profound, and persuasive way possible. Otherwise, you're doing it a disservice. I'll give you an example. A doctor is actually a salesperson. They're the one, they got to sell you on the prescription. They got to sell you on the program. They got to sell you on seeing them that they're the right doctor. But then after that, they got to sell you on following through. So they could scare you into doing it. If you don't do this, you're going to get sick. If you don't do this, you're going to die. Or they could persuade you with a good thing. If you do this, you'll be healthier. You'll feel better. You'll lose these symptoms. But either way, they're in sales too.
Yeah.
Every persuasion.
So for students, for kids that may be introverted but want to get that talent or get that skill set, what advice or what do you suggest they do to improve?
Study people who are good at it. Watch them. Read books on it. Read books on persuasion. Again, I'm not pitching me, but I would follow someone like me who's persuasive, who communicates. See the way I use words. Look at on my podcast. I have training on about persuasion, about selling, about influence. Listen to that stuff. I study people who are just good talkers. I watch preachers on TV. I watch stand-up comedians. I watch other salespeople. I watch anybody who communicates for a living. I watch political people give speeches. I like whatever I can do to study a little bit about how they communicate. I take little pieces from all of them. So it's just, there's a big thing in life that people need to learn called modeling, right? You don't need to create much anymore. You model people. And so I'm not just that I have mentors, I've modeled people. I've modeled myself after a collection of people.
I love that.
Yeah.
So for people that you come in contact with that are kids, high school, college kids, what is something that you see that kids are not realizing or something that they're missing that could definitely benefit them?
Big time. Here it is. Stop being obsessed with what everybody thinks about you. Social media particularly has made people addicted to other people's approval. How many likes did I get? How many comments did this get? And what that does, it transcends into the rest of your life. Now you do things to be liked, and you worry if you are being liked too much. And that's the symptom. The disease is you don't like yourself enough. That's that self-confidence, self-esteem, self-worth stuff we talked about earlier. If I could give any advice to a young person, is drop the addiction to other people's approval. Because here's the truth. People aren't thinking about you. They're thinking about what you're thinking about them. And everybody's got this disease. The second thing is, at the end of your life, you're not going to care what any of these people thought about you anyways. Okay? So here's the part that I'd say. Stand out. Be different. Don't go with the crowd. If everybody's going to the party and having a drink, maybe you should be the one who goes, you know what, man, that's not my deal. You know what I'm saying? That's not my deal. No, that's cool. You find out long-term people will respect you for being different. Hearn were just talking, the guy was interviewing, we both agreed, neither one of us want to be one of the guys. I don't like being one of the guys, right? I want to be my own. I'm an individual. He said to me, he goes, I want to stand alone. I want to stand alone. And I said, you know what? That's powerful. So do I. And so be bold, stand alone, be unique, be different. All the people that you look up to in life, for the most part, they all have one thing in common. They decided to stand alone and be themselves, not go with the crowd. The crowd leads to absolutely nowhere. It's cool and it's a loser play. Okay? It's a loser play. You want to go with the crowd, look where all the crowds are in life and see if you want to be in that crowd. People you look up to, they ain't in the crowd. I ain't in the crowd.
Love it, love it. I'm going to switch it up a little bit now because from hearing you speak and watching you, there's just a certain amount of energy I get from you on your faith.
Thank you. On my faith?
What about your faith? Like, what is your story of faith? Has faith always been a strong part of your life?
No, I was raised with faith. I'll tell you, I was raised with faith, but it wasn't a real strong part of my life until I got into maybe my mid-20s. Now, my wife's brother's a pastor. Her dad was a lay minister, and so, you know, there's a lot of faith in that family. So my wife's had a lot to do with me acquiring more and more of my faith. But it's just, it was a realization as I got older that I can't get through this life on my own. I need God. I'm not that good. I'm just a man, right? So if I look back in my life, a lot of the great things that happened are because I worked hard, but because there was favor there too. There was blessing. And every time I started to think it was me, God had a way of sort of taking it from me. There's a great parable in the Bible called the parable of the sower. And I don't care what your faith is. I'm not preaching one faith. But the parable of the sower is great because it talks about planting seeds. And it talks about there'll be a harvest if you keep planting seeds. You have to have faith that there's a harvest, because in this parable, you know, the wind gets some of the seeds, the weather does, the rain, the birds take it. But basically, the point of the parable is if you just keep planting those seeds, that eventually God provides a harvest for you, right? And so in life, you have to do the seed planting. Too many people that have faith go, oh, God will provide, God will provide. Well, you forget the part of you planting seeds, you doing the work, you showing up, right? So yeah, there's favor, but you got to plant the seeds in order for that field to have a harvest. And so I'm really comfortable when I plant the seeds of having faith that he'll provide a harvest. Even though life's going to have some of these things get taken away from me, at the end of it, there's a harvest there. So my faith gives me comfort, gives me strength. It gives me a reason to live. It's pretty important. And so it's the centerpiece of my life. And I pray every night. I'm on my knees every night. I do it every single night next to my bed. I actually hit my knees and pray.
I love it. And I mean, like what you say, plant the seed. Like, I mean, you don't just preach when you're on your post, but you can tell there's an energy there, so that by even having that energy, you are planting the seed to have an opportunity to have that. They feel comfortable approaching you. You know, some people are afraid to talk about faith, but if you bring it up, for me, it was one of those things like, if you hear somebody that has a story and it's something you relate to, something you went through, you know, and they're in a good place now, that's somebody you're going to want to hear. You're going to want to see.
The thing about my faith is that I'm honest about it. It's like I always kind of get repelled with people. Well, I just always had it. Like I just know. Well, the kind of thing, the cool thing with me is like I have struggled with my faith before. That's why it's faith, right? That's why it's faith. There's going to be a struggle with it. And so, of course I have. It's like, but at the end of the day, if I look back on my life, I'm 47 years old, man. I'm just telling you straight back. If I look back on my life, a lot of it was the Lord picking me up on his shoulders and carrying me for a while when I was down, right? Because I had faith. I think I was aware of it. And I'm not real preachy with my faith because I don't think I'm better than someone because I believe something or they're wrong. I think, hey, if it works for you, it works for me. I'm telling you, what works for me is my faith. That's what I know. And I'm confident about it. My self-confidence, the root of it comes from my faith.
Yeah, but that's one thing I love about you is because you have that confidence. And a lot of people look at somebody of faith that they're weak.
Yeah.
Successful businessman, entrepreneur, husband, father, and a man of faith, and you're a light in this world. You're using social media, using your platform to do good.
Thank you.
Like, seriously, like I was so excited when you said yes, because like you're the type of person that every entrepreneur should want to be like.
Dude, thank you, man. That's very touching. You make me emotional when you say that. So thank you, brother. That's inspiring for me to hear. I really do appreciate that. Believe me, let me say one thing to everybody. I'm a flawed person. I'm a man. I'm a sinner saved by God's grace, right? I'm not a perfect person. Believe me. Already today, I've probably done about 1,100 stupid things. But I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to get better. And I love the chase of getting better. I love the chase of chasing down the dude I was born to be, right? Because I haven't met him yet, but I'm after him. There was a dude that God made me to be. There was a person God made you to become in his image and likeness, that he sees who you're capable of. And every day of your life is a chase to meet that person. Every day you're chasing down that person. And so I love the chase, because I get off track, then I get back on. I get off track, then I get back on. But I know where I'm running. I'm running down that dude I was born to be. And so I love that. That's what I love about life.
Love it, love it. So we only got a few minutes left,
Yeah.
but I definitely want to give you an opportunity. I mean, I know you have 2 kids. You have one that's in high school and one that's younger.
Wow, you really know, yeah.
Yeah, hey man, I did a little research. I don't know the birth, but if you had an opportunity to talk to parents of kids that are in middle school, high school, like, what do you, as a parent yourself, like, what do you want for your kids? Like, how should parents, I mean, I know parents have their own way of doing things, but as a parent, what are your advice for other parents that want to see their kids succeed?
Yeah, because parenting is an art form, not a science, that's for sure. And I think parenting different children can be different. Like, I don't parent both kids exactly the same. You know, my daughter's a little bit more strong-willed than my son is, but I want my kids to leave my house with 3 things. I want them to leave my house with faith, self-confidence, and the ability to communicate, which are the 3 things you've asked me about, which makes this a damn good interview, I'll tell you.